Hi there, my name's Greg Harradine, I'm a composer, and in this episode of Good Art, Bad Art, I'll be discussing J.S. Bach's Goldberg variations, BWV 988, and discussing whether they are an example of good art or bad art. Now, it's sort of an obvious question, right? These variations are an absolute pinnacle of classical music. Some people don't like them. I've heard people say they don't like them, but the general consensus is they're an incredible example of what can be done in music. And I would agree. Yeah, no surprises there. These are outstanding. The recordings I often listen to are Glenn Gould's recordings, but of course these have been recorded many, many times by many different people. It's amazing that the variations can stand up so well under different interpretations. I think that's one of the hallmarks of an outstanding work of art, musically speaking. You know, Glenn Gould famously made these two separate recordings, first in 1955 when he was a young man. I think he was 22. He made a very fast recording. Yeah, the tempi he chooses are often really quite fast. He doesn't play many of the repeats. And so, therefore, the variations take up just 38 minutes. Whereas when he made his 1981 recording, just before his death, really, his recording then was 51 minutes long. So he obviously took things a bit slower and he did play more of the repeats. Compare this to Angela Hewitt's 1999 recording. It takes nearly 80 minutes. So that's double the length of Glenn Gould's 1955 recording. Anyway, that aside. There's absolutely so much that could be said about the Goldberg variations, and I've only got 8 minutes. That's what I do in these videos. I just talk off the cuff for 8 minutes, and I like to hear your opinion too. So let me know what you think of the Goldberg variations. What I think I should do is share the story of why they're called the Goldberg variations, just quickly, because it's a very famous story, and if you don't know it, you should, even though it may very well not be true. But anyway, never let the truth get in the way of a good story, right? So, why are they called the Goldberg variations? Because there was a chap called Count Keyserling. Yeah, we'll get on to Goldberg in a minute. Let's start with Count Keyserling. He was the Russian ambassador to the electoral court of Saxony, and he would often take trips to Leipzig. And when he did, he took with him a young man called Johann Gottlieb Goldberg, who I think was about 14 at the time that this particular story takes place. So, young man indeed. He took Goldberg with him because Count Keyserling suffered from insomnia, and Goldberg was very useful at sitting in the Count's antechamber at night and playing music to him, to maybe try to ease him to sleep or just to provide some entertainment during these long sleepless nights. And this young chap, Goldberg, was even taught by J.S. Bach himself while he was in Leipzig. Now, one day, in the presence of Bach, Count Keyserling happened to say that he would like some new pieces written for the clavier for Goldberg to play, and I think he said he wanted pieces that were of a smooth and somewhat lively character. That sort of seems a bit of an opposition there, smooth and lively. But anyway, and Bach indeed wrote some new pieces, which became what we know today as the Goldberg variations. And the Count loved them. He actually called them his variations. But of course, we don't know them as the Keyserling variations. We call them the Goldberg variations, after Johann Gottlieb Goldberg, who was probably their first performer. But Count Keyserling loved them so much, he gave Bach a gift of a golden goblet filled with 100 louis d'or, 100 gold coins. A lot of money in those days. Anyway, that's the story. Quite possibly not true, sadly, but still, a lovely story. Now, these are the only set of variations Bach ever wrote, but what variations they are. I'll just try to say a little bit about why they're so wonderful. So there are 30 of them. We have an opening aria, then 30 variations. It's a lot of variations. And then the aria is repeated at the end, bringing the work to a close. And one of the outstanding things is the sense of unity that seems to govern this composition. Bach partially achieves that through a careful structuring of the variations. Every third variation is a canon. So variation 3, variation 6, variation 9, on and on. And as we go through, we have variation 3 is a canon at the unison, at the same pitch. Variation 6 is a canon at the second, one step higher. Variation 9 is a canon at the third. another step higher, and so on until variation, 27, is a canon at the 9th. Now you'd think the final variation 30, would be a canon at the 10th, but no, Bach breaks the pattern. You can have too much of a good thing. And variation 30 is what we call a quodlibet. Now that is a sort of mishmash of tunes from popular songs, a sort of medley. And apparently in the Bach household, they used to get together sometimes, Bach and his sons, and sing these spontaneous quodlibets where they'd kind of improvise just together, singing bits of popular folk tunes. So that is what Bach is sort of harking back to, or maybe memorializing perhaps in variation 30. That's just one of the ways that Bach very carefully structured these variations. And that shows, that holds, it helps to hold it all together. The aria, the opening aria, provides the bass line and the chord progression that is the basis for all the variations. Yeah, they're not linked by melody, they're linked by the harmony. And the music seems to sort of develop out of its own materials in a way. It's been pointed out many times, that the bass line initially has this 4-note descending pattern. And then, for example, in the right hand of the aria, we often have a 5-note descending pattern. Yeah. And these links happen again and again and again. The music just develops itself in a way, or it seems to do so. Of course, this is an example of Bach's genius. Yes, I mean, I think really one of the things I want to end with is just something Glenn Gould himself wrote about this work, because he puts it into words that I can never muster. So I'll read a paragraph by Glenn Gould here. He wrote this as the liner notes of his 1955 recording. So Gould wrote these words when he was 22. He's talking about the variations now. It is, in short, music which observes neither end nor beginning. Music with neither real climax nor real resolution. Music which, like Baudelaire's Lovers, rests lightly on the wings of the unchecked wind. It has, then, unity through intuitive perception, unity born of craft and scrutiny, mellowed by mastery achieved and revealed to us here, as so rarely in art, in the vision of subconscious design exulting upon a pinnacle of potency. I mean, yeah, I could never summon up words like that. But it is incredibly potent. It is a pinnacle of musical creativity. And it seems almost subconscious. It unfolds so seemingly naturally. But if you haven't heard them in a while, sit down, treat yourself to a recording of the Goldberg variations. I give it 96 out of 100. Goodbye.